I'm probably going to come at this from a little different standpoint than Larry and Malcolm did, because I'm a bird guy. I'm one of the bird guys that likes prairies because I like the species, especially the bird species, that live in the prairie. So a little bit about my background and who I work for. I work for the Gulf Coast Joint Venture. Joint ventures came into existence in about 1986. And basically what conservation joint ventures do is step down national and international bird plans to smaller geographies. And the way we do that is through a form of adaptive management, where we come up with population and habitat goals that are stepped down from those bigger plans to a smaller geography like the Gulf Coast Joint Venture geography. And then we figure out where on the landscape that habitat exists and where we need to put it. And then we do a conservation delivery segment, and that's kind of where me and the CGRIP program fall in. And then we do some outcome-based management or monitoring of what we've planned and where we put it. And that's an iterative cycle, and we do that over and over and over again till we come close to getting it right. So here's the Gulf Coast Joint Venture geography. We run from basically the Florida-Alabama border down to the tip of Texas. Our geography is broken up into 6 different initiative areas, and those are the smallest units that we step down our planning to. The 2 initiative areas that are be most interest today are the Texas Mid-Coast. That's where we started the CGRIP program in Texas in 2018. And then just recently, we've initiated CGRIP in southwestern Louisiana this past year. So Larry and Malcolm did a great job explaining, where the historical range of the coastal prairie was. We've got less than 1% of it left today. The major factors contributing to that are introduction of invasive exotic grasses and plants, urban sprawl, encroachment of woody species into the prairie ecosystem. So that's a lot of problems. So going to the species that are important to my joint venture as well as important to the prairie ecosystem. Northern bobwhite for one. There used to be quail abundant in the coastal prairies, and you can see from this trajectory from 1981, it's almost in a nosedive. Mottled duck in the Texas coastal prairie, again, a strong decline of those species. And then, again, if we look at Louisiana, kind of that same trend. So to me, what's kind of cool about the mottled duck is the mottled duck only exists in the western Gulf coastal prairie. It doesn't migrate like other waterfowl species from the north to the south. It spends its entire life cycle here in the coastal prairie and marshes. So last year, the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Conservation came to the joint venture and said, hey, we've got some money and we're interested in mottled ducks. And we noticed you got this program over in Texas, CGRIP, the Coastal Grassland Restoration Center program. We think we have a good idea what's affecting the mottled ducks and why they've declined. They don't have the nesting cover that they used to have, and they don't have the brood rearing habitat to raise those young ducklings up into adult ducks. So we'd like to use the CGRIP program in southwest Louisiana to help improve the nesting habitat for mottled ducks. So they came to us with basically $100,000 each year for 3 years to improve mottled duck nesting habitat through prairie restoration in southwest Louisiana. So, talked a little bit about CGRIP already. So what is CGRIP? CGRIP is just a means to provide a financial incentive to private landowners to improve grassland bird habitat on their property. CGRIP's a totally voluntary program. It reimburses private landowners a set payment of identified practices identified by a project manager and the landowner. And basically those practices fall into the categories of brush management, prescribed burning, native grass reseeding, and prescribed grazing. A lot of the same things that you heard Larry talk about as being important to keep prairies prairies. Some of the species that the Gulf Coast Joint Venture is interested in and thinks that these grassland prairie improvements will help are northern bobwhite, loggerhead shrike, the LeConte sparrow, and the mottled duck, as I said, especially regarding nesting habitat and brood-rearing habitat. So the way we started the CGRIP program out was identifying focal areas, kind of existing remnants of prairie, or where it existed, where we thought we'd have the best chance of success after 10 years. Could we say CGRIP did some good stuff for coastal grasslands and prairies? So we've got 5 initiative areas in the Texas Mid-Coast, but then we've also got 5 initiative areas over in southwest Louisiana. And those will be important in a little bit when we talk about eligibility requirements, because to be eligible for CGRIP, you have to be within one of the focal areas. I get a lot of blowback from people. Why do you have these focal areas? You know, I get project managers at least once or twice a year call me, hey, I've got this great landowner. He's just across the road from the focal area. Can we get him in? And as much as I'd like to say yes, you know, because we like everybody, truly from a management standpoint, we really want to focus these conservation efforts. Too many of the conservation programs in the past have kind of used that shotgun approach, but it disperses the impact too much that you can't really measure it. So in order to set up a monitoring program where we had treatments and controls, areas where we're doing good grassland work, and then areas outside that we weren't, to be able to make a comparison and look at trend lines after 10 years, we would hope the slope of the CGRIP trend line is higher than that slope of our control areas. So we're pretty hard and fast on not allowing folks outside these focal areas currently, but who knows what's going to happen to the program in the future as far as additional funding and support for the program in southwest Louisiana. So to be eligible for CGRIP, the treatment area has to be located at least partially in a focal area, which I just showed you. Treatment area has got to be on private land. This is a private land program. The treatment area has got to be at least 25 acres in size. The treatments being proposed are eligible practices on the CGRIP practice list, and they're in accordance with what the recommendations of the CGRIP project manager. The landowner agrees to cover any amount above the amount they'll receive in CGRIP funding, and basically that incentive payment that we pay is 50% of the NRCS equip rate. So if it costs $100 to do a practice per acre, we're going to pay $50. If you can get your brother-in-law to do that practice for $60 an acre, then, or, you know, it doesn't cost you as much with that incentive. And even if you can get it done for $40 per acre, we don't care if you make $10 on the project or not, as long as you're doing good things. The maximum amount for individual projects in Louisiana are $25,000. Texas started out with $25,000, and a year or two later it was bumped up to $50,000 as we got more funding coming in to support the program. Landowners got to agree to at least one of these two things to make sure that that habitat we're providing stays there for a while, and they got to be committed to maintaining that improved habitat for at least 5 years after the project's implemented, or the property needs to be in a conservation easement. They provide technical and financial assistance for research concerns, and you can see second to the bottom is create improved wildlife habitat. And then the last one is CRP, and that's just a program where they're looking to remove environmental sensitive lands from production and put them into a 10 or 15-year contract to put that kind of semi-productive land from an agricultural standpoint into another use, such as wildlife habitat that prevents erosion, improves water quality, the same things you've heard earlier about some of the benefits of what prairies do as far as ecological services. One thing I would caution at the end is these cost share programs are not a one-size-fits-all. You've got to do a little bit of research to search around to find the program that best fits your operation and your needs. I didn't get into it, but NRCS also has, they're moving towards more of an urban type producer setting. So they've got some programs I didn't cover because I'm not that familiar with them. But the urban production is important. They've also got a bunch of pollinator programs for butterflies and species that we talked about earlier that are important. So I know it's easy to get kind of overwhelmed. There's a lot of information being thrown out at you at one time. But spend some night in the evening on the internet looking around, and there's always people like me and Seth that you can talk to that can help you, point you in the right direction. I might not be able to operate or run an NRCS program, but I kind of have a good general idea of what their programs are and what they can be used for. So if I can't help you, I can maybe point you in the right direction to get you closer to where you need to be. Like with any successful program, it can't be done by one person alone. So joint ventures are big on partnerships. We have funding partners, administrative partners, and then delivery partners that are actually serve as project managers for these projects. You can see the Louisiana logos for the Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries, as well as the Louisiana Wildlife and Fisheries Foundation as an administrative partner. So with that, there's my contact information, the link to the CGRIP website where you can get a lot more information about CGRIP there, and I'd be happy to take any questions if anybody's got a question. Yeah.
With rewilding efforts, you want to get all of these programs actually under some umbrella so that anyone who is rewilding or creating a habitat or recreating a habitat begins to receive some form of incentive.
Yeah.
So somebody needs to write a book or make a web page and
Yep.
bring all this stuff together.
Yep.
so that anyone interested in even an acre can find some way to get some
Yep,
financial help and generalized support.
yep. I agree, one-stop shopping would be nice.
You need someone to tell us how the hell to do it.
Also, I forgot to mention that in your handout pamphlet, there's a handout about CGRIP in there also.
And to respond to what you said, Malcolm, we have some family land and it fits into the CGRIP program, but I'm sort of getting my head around. I'm glad I have a PhD because these programs are overwhelming. But all you have to do is call your taxpayer dollars pay for the Natural Resources Conservation Service, which is a division of the USDA, and they are very interested in general. And so, which program your particular piece fits in, they're the ones that can tell you, or the partners, like Steve said. So. You don't have to do all the research yourself, but you going to your soil conservation agent for your parish. St. Landry, it's right there on I-49. Y'all know where yours is? Liz, where's Liz? You have an equipped grant for how big is your piece? Half acre,
Okay.
y'all. And she has an equipped grant.
I did half acre too. And we'll have a little bit myself about how to kind of gain this.
Yeah.
So now you've all gotten a taste. This is where you get started.
And you can leverage these programs. I've got a landowner over in Texas that he's using CGRIP money to pay for certain practices, the Partners Program to pay for certain practices, and the Wildlife Habitat Federation to pay for certain practices. So he's leveraging whatever amount that he's putting in 3 times with 3 different programs. So
use your taxes. You pay those taxes, and these people are professionals. They know what they're, and that's why
And I know the Corps comes in and is now doing wetland mitigation, because
well,
we know.
they don't do it. They just oversee it.
We know a family that's put up 400 acres in Evangel Parish, which is now, that we planted it, and Steve knows a lot more about this than I do, that's in wetland mitigation in perpetuity. Right? So some of these projects we need to think in perpetuity. We need to remake nature, or at least give it a chance.
Yeah, and those are corporate endeavors, which are good because, there's a way for compensating landowners to use their land for wetland credits for development elsewhere. So, one more question, and then we're going to take our break.
So I'm just wondering if your property goes under one of these grants for restoration, does it still qualify? Like if you're already getting the agricultural tax incentives for your property? Does anybody know?
CGRIP does not use adjusted gross income. I know some of the Farm Bill programs look at how much the landowner makes.
Like I have acreage under soybeans right now, and so I get the property tax break for agricultural as opposed to being considered residential land, which is a huge tax break for property tax. So if I would go under one of these grants for restoration, would I still qualify for that land use?
I know in the state of Texas you can get a wildlife tax exemption where you switch your ag exemption to wildlife. I'm not quite sure how it works in Louisiana, if you can do that or not.
Your USDA.
Yeah, I'd talk to your tax assessor also.